Greetings, Kindred. I am Voivode Maquette, and welcome back to My World of Darkness, where this is episode 3 of the second season of the Thicker Than Water recap. We had a very interesting game session this past week. First off, we had decided that we are going to try the Chicago Chronicles, so we are not going to have the Chronicles of Portland, Oregon thing up for a little while. We will be returning back to our homeland of Portland. That is damn sure. But for now, I have this want to run through all of these supplements that are out there. Anything that has any ability to run storyline, I really want to do it, because the groups at World of Darkness who write these things have worked so hard, and I really want to try them all. And I really want to I also want to tie them into our story so the players don't have to create new characters every single time. And this Chicago thing has really been up in the air and a possibility since CERT, since I had Kevin Jackson be the one who helped endorse the blood hunts against Deacon Royce and Damian Hargrave. But this week was interesting because, first off, we eat dinner as a group, as a troop, every single time. And as celebration of moving to Chicago, I went ahead and made Chicago deep dish pizza, which it's not the first time I've done it. I love doing it. It's delicious. It's just, however, it's one of those things that I just don't make that often because it's so big, it's so filling, it's so bad for you. It is so good. It's such a, oh my god. It is designed to make you be wind resistant. I will give you that, man. Oh my god. So good. Anyway, so outside of the realm of food, we also spent the evening working on character details. I let the players sit around the table and discuss whatever they wanted to. Hopefully that was mostly in character. I doubt it, but mostly in character, hopefully. And I took them all out one by one onto my back porch, and we just audited character sheets and went over in-week actions and stuff, because I gave them 2 months to catch up, because right now we're in March, and the plot line that we were in was set the beginning of January. So I allowed them to have that downtime to have personal character development, to do what they felt they needed to do, for Dawn and Sam to finish off their character stories and to take them in the direction that they wanted to, so that we might be able to have them come back. Because yes, I have been informed that as the story progresses, Dawn Rose has had enough of everything that's going on in Portland and has decided to move on, as well as Sam in his own way. And I'm sure we'll end up finding out later on what happens. But right now, currently, for all intents and purposes, those characters are shelved, but may return later in the future. But we actually had some time to work on new character concepts and how that was going to go. So that being said, we only got about an hour of gameplay in. We started at 11, we ended at midnight, because we usually start at 8 and play till midnight. But by the time we were done with all the audits and stuff, we finally got to sit down to play. And what we ended up doing was handling 2 scenes, and those were developed to the scenes of them trying to get to Chicago, because vampires don't move often. If you think about how much open rural space, some untamed wildland in America standards, is in between Portland, Oregon and Chicago, there are so many dangers on what they're going to do. And what they had decided on was to, at first, get Miles Trent, who's known, he's a Brujah, he's in the same bloodline, brood, family, unit, whatever you want to call it, as Tinia. He's the broodmate of Tinia's sire, Colin Griffin. They share a sire. So Miles is yet again Uncle Miles. Miles always ends up as the uncle, which is so weird. But Miles is known for trafficking things in and out of the city. That's what he does to keep his money up, because having the Trent's Scratch and Dent, Miles Trent's Scratch and Dent auto body shop isn't really that lucrative. He works specifically with getting Kindred vehicles up to par, but his prime income comes from sending Kindred all over the country. And the original idea that he had was, let's get a semi, pack everybody up in boxes, and drive there. You will be out of commission for a few days. You will be packed up in boxes, and it's going to suck, but you should get there safely. But the idea of way stations, possibilities of being pulled over by police, if anybody decides that they're going to use their influences to mess with the Kindred in any fashion, because they do have quite a few SPC enemies that very well might try to ruin things. Truthfully, anybody who is involved in the Camarilla right now in Portland, Oregon, would be putting every ounce of their influence into ruining this for them, so that the Anarchs can't take over the city. Then there's the concept of werewolf attacks. What if they're driving through a wooded area and that happens? Like, there's just so many things that could go wrong. So what they settled on is airplane. They're going to meet at 4:30 in the morning at Portland International to get put into travel caskets and sent into Chicago. It's going to be a quicker trip, just a few hours. It's going to happen during the day while they're asleep, and nothing should go wrong. There were rules. No taking cell phones, no electrical equipment, no smartwatches, no anything like that in the caskets. That cannot happen, because these things are going to run through X-ray machines, and we need to make sure that there's nothing that's going to make the people who work for the TSA want to open these caskets. They need to look like regular bodies. And due to the fact that there has been an influx in death over the last couple of months, they're not going to raise many eyebrows when people are being shipped across the country in caskets. So what they decided to do was get a hold of some Kindred travel caskets, which are stainless steel caskets which are lined with a flame retardant material on the inside, where they can get out if it's locked on the outside if need be, but nothing else should be able to get in unless they have a key. Did not mean for that to rhyme, but it happened. You're welcome. But they all end up meeting at 4:30 in the morning after these plans are made on March 11th. I know we were in the past and now we're skipping into the future a little bit. But on March 11th at 4:30 in the morning, they all gather. And after about a week or so of trying to figure out who's going on this first trip, because they've decided that they cannot send all of the Anarchs to Chicago to attend the school at once. That would make Chicago way, way too overpopulated with Kindred, and they're not trying to start a fight with Kevin Jackson. They're just trying to utilize the services that Cretius, whatever hell the Brujah Primogen's name is over there, has when it comes to teaching Kindred how to live as Kindred without causing problems. So, it's just such a ridiculous premise. The vampires are going to school. But it's a World of Darkness thing, and I'm actually interested in utilizing it. So they decided to send them over in groups of 5. The first thing that was discussed was how they were going to get the passports, the post-mortem passports, to get the bodies to travel. Miles approaches Justin for this, Justin Murphy, and says, "You work for the morgue, is there any way you can push this past?" "What's in it for me?" is the first thing that Justin says. And dude, I have to completely admit that my character burned a willpower, knowing that this guy is Sabat. Miles actually accommodated what he needed, because Miles knows that as much fun as it would be to smack this Toreador around, to smack this vampire who's in the Sabat around and bloody up his knuckles, there's probably nothing that he can do that the Sabat hasn't done on a regular Tuesday night to this guy for fun. So What do you want is really all that could happen. And the idea of lore, the idea of he wants knowledge, and Miles can respect that because Miles apprenticed under Cuthbert Beckett. Miles has always been that character. It's like when people get to know him at first, he seems to be rough and tumble, typical Brujah Anarch. But I always wanted him to have some kind of important academic pursuit in mind. He was embraced as a college student, and he's always been that child of life, that student of life mentality. And studying under Cuthbert Beckett is really just the one thing that I wanted to give him. So, pulling out the best of my storyteller thought processes that I could, I made a deal with Justin that if he can get 5 passports that we can change the names and reuse as time goes by every few months to get all the Anarchs done with this deal that Tinia made with Prince Smith, he would get a copy of a very hard to get book to Justin, and that it should cover all the pricing. Like, it should cover the payment for every single time. This perked Justin's curiosity. And so, it was finally agreed that Justin would get a copy of Beckett's Jihad Journal as an in-character use of the game. Now, I have one, and Cole, Justin's player, has access to reading it whenever they want to. So now anything that they read in the Jihad Journal, which I understand it's a V20 item, but a lot of the metaplot that it discusses inside that book actually can cross over very easily into 5th edition. So it's a big book. It'll take them a while to get through things, and anything that's in there that doesn't match V5 can always be a misconception on Beckett's part. He's Kindred after all. He can make mistakes. So after slamming that big old journal down in front of Justin, he went ahead, pulled the strings, got the post-mortem passports, and were sent in. So back to the morning of March 11th, 5 individual Kindred pull up to the parking area at Portland International Airport. Miles Trent is there, and he's discussing with Tinia and Gabriel how things are going to go. So we now have Tinia and Gabriel who have gone. Now, I gave the players the ability, and sadly, it was only 2 of the players who got to make this decision, but one NPC to be able to attend with them. They chose Jonathan Harker. Jonathan Harker, my Anarch Tremere, was from Golconda, Illinois, which is actually a real place. It was, when Cole was my storyteller, they ran the first tabletop I had actually ever played in for Vampire the Masquerade, where I played a Tremere, and I brought in Jonathan Harker as my player character. So this is almost a returning home, which they are not happy about, because they were trained at the Chicago Chantry. Which was a lot of fun because I got to take a lot of the Tremere, the Chicago-specific thaumaturgy, and give it to Harker while I was creating his sheet. So he will be there as a guide to be able to ask questions and to be able to pull strings from time to time when it comes to the Chicago Tremere, even though they don't really like him because he's gone Anarch. So they chose to bring him. They had left Sam a message, which Sam had talked to them. They got a date, they got a time, but an Uber pulls up and a young woman pops out and says, "Sam told me to say Jack Sparrow sent me to repay his debts," because he's got to have some kind of joke. Sam's player Daviga is now going to be playing this young woman named Annette, who is going to be, whose avatar is going to be Jennifer Lawrence. He wanted a small framed, pretty girl, and it's quickly sussed out that this girl is one of Sam's drug patrons and ends up being a gangrel from Seattle that he works with. That she is repaying a debt to him to go to the Chicago situation while he runs off and does whatever he wants. This is him shelving his character and bringing in Annette. So I love it. I love it when player characters decide to play outside of their physicals, out of their own physical forms. And Daviga played Alice when we did Chicago by Night so well that I guess he wanted to return to playing outside of his own gender to portray this character. And so far, it's been really fun. She's up for adventure. I'll give her that, because one of the things, oh my God, Gabriel was like, "What kind of gangrel are you?" and started describing the difference between city and country gangrels. And Annette is just like, "There's different kinds." It was just a lot of fun. But so they end up going through this whole, this is how this works on the plane. No cell phones, no anything, no wallets or anything like that, because that metal strip on the back of your ID can actually cause issues. So anything that they're bringing with them that can't go through the X-rays, which will cause problems, is going to go into an envelope and couried over to Chicago, and it should get there early, at the same time, if not earlier than they do. Other than that, I mean, that's pretty much what we did. I had described that a couple of the coroner's vans had pulled up, dropping off these travel caskets that are said to have people in them, but are actually empty at this point in time. They get loaded up, and they go about their way. They go flying. Now, what the players don't know, and they're going to know now, is that aside from the fact that Miles is pulling these strings, he is also sending the semi at the same time. He's making it so that a semi that is going from Portland to Chicago, legit on business, is still going to be thought by the majority of the vampires in Portland that is how they're traveling there. So that whatever Camarilla wants to pull some shenanigans still waste their resources on pulling over by pulling over a semi that's got nothing in it that's going to help them. So at that point, we are going to pick up next game session with the characters meeting David and Serendipity's new characters and being brought into the world of Chicago. Now, I've read the Sacrifice, which is the name of the plot line that they give you outlined in the Chicago by Night book. And it's one of those things that I really see the Anarchs, if they get pulled into it as soon as they get to Chicago, are going to be like, "We didn't sign up for this. Why are we helping with this?" So I really need to get them invested in the city first. So please don't worry about it. We're not doing it. We are going to do it, but I do have to get them invested into the storyline and into the lives of the Chicago Kindred first, before throwing all these NPCs at them that they don't know. I'm trying to familiarize myself, because I've been storytelling for over 10 years with the NPCs, SPCs, that I've been using all this time. I know their stories inside and out. I know who they are. And now I'm picking up pieces of paper that have descriptions of characters I've never even met before. So lots of fun on my end. And I have to try to find a way to adapt my storytelling abilities to these characters that have such a rich and amazing history into them. So please be patient. I'm trying. But anyway, so I am Voivode Maquette. This is Our World of Darkness, and thank you for joining me with episode 3 of the Thicker Than Water recap. Episode 4 is coming. I do want to let you know that after episode 4, episode 5, we're going to end up being on a little bit of a hiatus when it comes to this the recaps, because I'm going out of town, and for 1 week we will not be playing games. So just a little heads up on what's going on. I will talk to you later in the next video. Good evening.